Hey everybody, David G here, founder of the Internet Marketing Party, and I am very, very pleased to bring you our very special guest, Mr. Jeff Harmon. How are you, Jeff?
I'm great. Good to be on with you.
Cool, cool. So, real quick, I want to. Jeff is a 28-year-old CMO of a company called Aura Brush. That when he found out about Aura Brush, he was a college student at BYU. It was his last day of school, and one of the marketing classes he was in. Dr. Bob, who is now known as Dr. Bob, the inventor of the Aura Brush. And if you've been living under a rock or you never go on YouTube, then Aura Brush is one of the big sensations on YouTube. They're up there in Old Spice guy territory. Ad Age featured them along with Warren Buffett's companies, Coca-Cola and Heinz and Pepsi, some big companies. And at the time, Jeffrey was fresh out of college. So one of the other things is Jeff is a really innovative guy. You actually kind of physically even resemble Tim Ferriss, but the way your brain works is similar too. In that one of the things that we're talking about at the party is how this college student, ex-college student, got an executive at Walmart to call him using internet marketing and a measly $28. So you've got all kinds of cool tricks up your sleeve. I've got a bunch of cool questions. You've been featured in the New York Times, Ad Age, Inc., USA Today, Wall Street Journal, Nightline, MSNBC, CNN, Bloomberg, Mashable, Business Week, Wired. The list could just go on and on and on. And I see you're wearing your VidCon shirt. So if it's got to do with YouTube, doesn't the CEO of YouTube call you from time to time? And
Oh
Jeffrey,
yeah, not the CEO, but I've met him a few times because of.
yeah, yeah. And Jeff was also one of the people that was instrumental. And when you watch YouTube down at the bottom there where it says skip this ad, you can thank this man right here for that. That's probably all we should say is if you like the skip this ad feature, this is the guy to thank right here. This guy. So
Thanks.
I think that's a pretty good intro, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's more than I deserve.
Oh well, yeah. I've got some other cool things I want to talk about, but um, so the first question I have for you is, what is one question that no interviewer has ever asked you that you've always wondered why no one asked? If you were interviewing yourself, you definitely would be curious about it.
Um, well, I'm always shocked when I'm more surprised at the questions interviewers ask me. They're constantly asking like, how did you go viral? And so that's pretty much the most common question over the last few years that I've been in countless interviews, and almost universally they're just like, so how did you go viral? How do you go viral? And that doesn't really match what we do. Viral videos are great. That's an aspect of what we do, but the reality is sustainable matters more. Like if you're going to get a million views on a video, I'd rather take a video that gets 10,000 views a day for a year, or for the next 3 years than I would a million views all at once. So I just want something sustainable.
I noticed that in one of your while I was researching you that to you it wasn't important. It was more important when you all came up with the idea of the Morgan the tongue, was
Yeah,
that there was a character that people could relate to, almost like a soap opera, and then
that's right.
they'd follow along, and it wouldn't be like, just this. Well, it was more. You referred to it as trying to capture mind share over and over.
That's
Uh,
right.
so
Trying to
it's
trying to keep our customers. You just want to stay in the front of their minds, so we get subscribers and Facebook likes and emails, and then try to stay in constant communication with them but earned communication, not annoying like spam letter communication.
right, 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 right. So that's one of the things I really enjoy about what I've been learning about you is that you seem to be, I don't know how much of it is learned and how much of it is for you feels innate, and probably some of it has to do with. I want to talk just a little bit about your background. You started out as, I mean, you come from a family of nine, correct?
Yeah, I'm the middle of nine kids.
And
Farm
and
boy from Idaho.
what's that?
I'm a farm boy from Idaho.
So when you were 12, you decided you wanted to go to a private school, and obviously with 9 kids, your dad wasn't printing money, so he
Yeah.
said, "Buddy, I can't afford it. If you want to go, you have to." No, you didn't even say that. You just decided you wanted to go there bad enough that you
Well, he
decide.
knew, yeah, they knew they couldn't afford it, but he was willing to drive me. So he would come down to Utah for business. And so I went to my grandparents' farm and packed up a bunch of potatoes into his Ford Taurus, 600 pounds of potatoes, and jumped in the car with him on a weekend and drove down to Utah. And then I sold them door to door. And I wrote up a little script and I went and got on the doorsteps, 12 years old, and said, "Hi, I'm from Idaho. My grandparents live up the street. I'm selling fresh Idaho potatoes to pay for my schooling. Would you like some?"
That's
And I was making like, I made like $110 an hour or something that first time. Anyway, it was really, it turned out really well.
awesome, awesome. And then the other thing I learned about you is that you spent 2 years in Ireland doing proselytizing mission. And so you've talked about how you feel like that's been a big foundation for, all the rejection and the overcoming fear and walking up to strangers. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I spent a 2-year mission for the Mormon Church. Everybody knows about Mormons right now because of the new musical, The Book of Mormon, in Broadway in New York.
Uh-huh.
So that brings a lot of recognition to. I was one of those missionaries. I mean, if you've seen the Broadway, it's not really quite like that. But I spent 2 years in Ireland, so we pay our own ways, and I would go knock on doors trying to teach them about the gospel for 12 hours a day and 7 days a week. So we got one day where we would take most of the day off, all but 3 hours to do our laundry and all that stuff. But it was a ton of work, and you really have to learn about rejection, because there were times where you'd be going like a week solid and not a single person would open the door or let you in their house. So
Wow.
so you
Wow.
learn about rejection that way. But
It's
rejection's good.
yeah, it's yeah. I mean, but
What is it? The founder, one of the Pixar guys, said that failure is you have to honor failure because it's the space that surrounds success. That's a misquote, but something like that.
yeah, yeah. So let's dig into your marketing chops, because some of what this is about is you're going to come to Austin in a couple of weeks and speak in a bar with a bunch of marketers who want to learn more about how you do what you do. So I came up with a couple of questions. You want to I know you've told the story a million times about Aura Brush, but you want to talk about the meat of it. I mean, once you did the campaign with a $500 video shoot, you hired one of your friends to do a rant, but
Yeah.
talk a little bit about, in your own words, about what happened with Aura Brush. Dr. Bob came in.
Yeah. So I was in this class. I was in my last day of my last class at the Marriott School at Brigham Young University. And I was in the back of the class just kind of doing what I do. Reading blogs and not paying attention to what's going on in class. And then this group got up and they were doing a report on the Aura Brush. And this old guy, 75-year-old Dr. Bob, was in there, and he was watching them give this report. And they got up and said, 92% of people won't even buy a product like this on the internet. So you need to go like partner with Procter and Gamble or get them to buy your patent or license your product. And I was sitting there kind of doing the math in my head, and I interrupted him and said, "I disagree with you. I think 8% of people is still millions of people, and you have just as good of a. It's easier to sell to those millions of people than it is to go talk to P&G. Like, there's no way that they're going to listen to you, and that's an easier sell to figure out, even with all the difficulties of like a small product price and shipping. It's got to be an easier thing to figure out how to sell it online to start there." And then Dr. Bob and I talked after class, and he said, he says that I guess I said I could sell your product online, and I don't remember all the wording, but we went and dove into it. And at nights after work, I would work on Aura Brush, and then after a few weeks, well, I'll tell the rest of the story there, but essentially what happened is we ended up getting into YouTube, and we were some of the first ones in there. And it was kind of like the early days of AdWords back then, and we got really inexpensive clicks, and that gave me a good chance to learn and get a base. Now, I mean, the beauty of what we've done with Aura Brush, like down the street from us here in Utah, the founder of Blend Tech, Willa Blend, he does the Willa Blend. He's just down the street. I know him, and they have they had one of the most viral campaigns of all time. They have no idea how to duplicate it. They have no idea what happened or how to do that. And the big difference is that I'd like to talk about when we're there, when I'm down in Austin, is how you can make a YouTube model sustainable and not have to focus, like go for base hits. Don't go for the home run every single time. And then when you get a home run, and you have loaded bases, you're going to score huge. So
Nice.
that's basically the concept behind YouTube. Instead of searching after those huge viral hits, go for base hits. And then eventually you may get a home run here and there, but you don't have to have it.
Very cool. Very cool. So, you just reminded me of something we talked about yesterday, which is that part of the purpose of this presentation, this interview, is to entice people to actually come to the party and meet you from all over the world, because you're traveling from Provo to Austin. So we're throwing down the gauntlet. Let's see who else comes in from around. And part of what we're going to throw out there is you're willing to share some pretty juicy morsels of wisdom of what you do to be so successful that you wouldn't just tell anybody. And we're going to even have to turn off the cameras. So I'm stoked about that. So get your butts to the party right now. Get registered. So if you were to, one of the things I had in mind was, let's hash out a 7-point checklist for a formula of what you would do if you had another product today that had, in your mind, the same wow factor that Aura Brush has.
Well, we just launched Aura Pup, and I didn't realize it would be bigger, but at the moment it looks like it's going to be bigger than Aura Brush. And people, I guess they care more about their dog's bad breath than their own.
That's awesome. In fact, my daughter, I have an 11-year-old daughter, and when I told her about you, she's like, "Oh, the Aura Pup guy!" And it's like, so she's upstairs right now, and I said, "Do you want to come say hi to Jeff?" She goes, "No." She's kind of bashful, so
Oh,
I was
okay.
like,
She probably thinks I'm Austin, though. Austin Craig, the Aura Brush guy, who's the handsome guy that's really articulate. That's not me. I'm not very good in front of the camera.
"Oh, you're doing great. You're doing great." So you have. Let me see. The question I asked was, "What's the 7-point formula?" But do you know what the formula is?
Yeah, I do.
You do.
Yeah, we just did it. I mean, we just did it with Aura Pup, and then we've been in some partnerships with a couple of billion-dollar brands as well, where we've done some work, and it's been pretty successful there as well. I can't,
Right.
for NDA reasons, I can't talk about their names, but they're huge brands.
Nice, nice. So, without going into any detail that would compromise your corporate knowledge and your secret sauce, can you give like a high level formula? And if you're not comfortable sharing that, like not even when I say formula,
No, that's fine. So basically, you learn in AdWords. So your audience, I think, is pretty familiar with AdWords.
Yep.
Or a lot of them are. And you take everything you learn in AdWords and then just apply it to YouTube. All about A/B testing. I mean, the tools don't exist the same way, and you have to really. It takes quite a while to get in and learn the ecosystem, but the principles are the same as all other. I mean, you take the principles. It's like a mix between the principles of AdWords, of direct television advertising, QVC. It's like mashing those all together into YouTube, and then customizing it for the YouTube environment. And if you imagine taking all those, putting them together, then you kind of have a formula. But I'll go into it in some detail at the meeting.
very cool, very cool.
I
I
don't want
think,
anybody to feel like they're not going to get there.
yeah, yeah.
They got to come.
Yeah. I think the only other thing I wanted to talk about before we wrap up, because yeah, I wanted to keep this nice and tight. You and I both know people have short attention spans, and so you mentioned in one of the interviews, I think it's the interview you did with Nightline, about how if internet marketing was taught at a university, even at Harvard, they would have to redo the manual, the curriculum every semester. Um,
Yep.
and that Madison Avenue is so far behind trying to catch up with us. What would you say are the three areas that they're furthest behind on, or that we're, as internet marketers, are the furthest ahead on? Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. I think one of the biggest struggles for big ad agencies is they were kind of their models were built, you know, 25 to 50 years ago around an old camera equipment, and so you have those old camera equipment and shooting on film required an enormous amount of labor and precision and preparation and all these. You know, it still takes a ton of preparation to do a good job, but it's nothing like it used to be.
mm-hmm,
And so now you've got cameras that look as good in 1080p, like the Canon cameras and stuff that look as good in 1080p as the old-fashioned equipment, or better actually. These digital cameras that cost almost nothing and anybody can run them. And so trying to restructure to be able to compete on a price level with what indie filmmakers and up and coming people can, that's a huge part where they're behind, is just readjusting to the new world of digital filming. And then the other parts are so that would be the first one, is the equipment, the basic way that you film and the costs involved in that. They'll have cost structures set up on that old system and they don't need those anymore. And unions force them to be in that. So even if one of them comes out of the cost structure, if you're in California and you're trying to film it, unions are just going to kill you. And then because the unions are set up on that old system and they have a really hard time adjusting. And then number three, I would say, is legal teams are really, really hard. Where if you're on Madison Avenue, you have to go through these huge approval processes to get anything for TV approved.
mm-hmm.
Legal teams are in their sweet merry time, but on YouTube, you've got to run rotations that are much faster, or else you can't keep up with the competition because everybody's moving faster. And so, a lot of it's organizational. A lot of the problems are.
I understand. Interesting. And so that's the second. Would you say there's a?
So the first one is just understanding the new equipment and stuff, unions.
Oh yeah, and then the legal teams. Yeah, gotcha.
I
Cool.
would say those are if they could get rid of those things, then catching up would be much quicker. But until they get rid of those, it's impossible. They can't catch up.
Gotcha.
And it's not get rid of it; it's restructure them to where they could move faster.
All right. Well, I think, I mean, we've covered a lot of good stuff. I think, can you just cover one morsel, like one teaser that you're going to share with people that you don't, that there's no way, there's not very many ways they could get it unless they come to the party.
A trick that we used, I don't think this is public anywhere. Well, maybe there was one little link on Boing Boing, but you'll never find. I don't think you'll find it. But how to use YouTube to pitch the press. I'll go into that. It'll be.
Ooh, that's
there's something unique that we did that we got a ton of results on.
All right. So I think that's about that. It's so you'll be here Thursday, June the 13th, right? Because we had a little problem with dates there.
Yeah.
And I want to acknowledge right now Steve and Askui for introducing us and for being the catalyst. Steve's been coming to the parties since I think he came to the very first one we ever did. And Steve started in internet marketing with Smiley Media, and you two are working on some interesting projects. You want to mention those, or wait until the party?
We founded well, Steve and I, we basically met each other because we were both supporting a presidential candidate, Ron Paul, and we wanted to help him. So we got together and worked on a campaign for him. Obviously, we didn't win, but we
Yeah.
learned a lot. Maybe we'll figure it out the next time around.
And that's called Endorse Liberty.
Endorse Liberty Super PAC. It was the largest super PAC supporting Ron Paul. Peter Thiel put quite a bit of money into it, and
Yeah.
quite a few other guys.
Exciting stuff. So you're a believer in liberty and a freedom fighter, and
Yeah,
you're big into Bitcoin and all kinds
yeah,
of really forward-thinking kinds of things. So
yeah.
this is
I'm
our
really
this is
excited
our
about
call out to all our fellow freedom fighters. So if you're not a marketer, come check out one of the leaders of the of the free world. Good stuff, man. Well, I'm really looking forward to it. Steve first told me about you. It was a solid like year and a half ago ish when he first met you. He sent me a text really excitedly. He said you and I would get along really well. So it's a pleasure to finally make the connection and really start. I've been bugging him for months and like, dude, connect me with Jeff. And he's like, oh, I'll do it. I'll do it. So here
Yeah,
we are.
You just have to follow up and follow up.
There's that rejection. Dunk, dunk, dunk. All
Yeah.
right, man. Well, I should have told you this earlier, but let's shake. See if we can.
All right. Yeah.
We're trying to figure.
It's backwards.
No, you gotta shake into the camera. We'll
Yeah.
figure. We'll shake. Oh, like that.
There you go.
All right. Cool, man. Well, we'll see you in a couple of weeks, and thank you so much for your time. I know it's really late right now, so.
Yeah, I'll see him. I think it's like 10 days. See
Yeah. All right. Cheers.
Okay. All right.
Good night.